Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. We have a great show with Kirsten Norton, who's the owner of Milk and Milestones. She's a speech pathologist. She works with lactation as a lactation consultant, and we get into all things orofacial and nipples, and discuss her business, what she sees, common things that children are suffering with. We talk about tongue ties, dental consultations, who refers to her and who should see her, when you introduce solids. We cover all kinds of things in this episode, so we hope you enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Warren and Dillon, the Midland's trusted personal injury lawyers. Here's some great advice from our sponsor.
Hey there, Brett Warren with Warren and Dillon. I wanted to talk to you today about some of the biggest mistakes you can make when it comes to dealing with insurance companies. I think one of them is giving a recorded statement to the insurance company. The problem is that the insurance companies, they're doing these recorded statements to help their case and to hurt yours. And so they're going to ask some sneaky questions that are designed to hurt your case. One quick example, they'll ask how many feet away you were from the other car when you first noticed them. Nobody really knows the answer to that. But what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, you should have noticed that other car, and now you're 20% at fault. So do yourself a favor, just don't do it or talk to a lawyer first. Trusted advice, proven results, Warren and Dillon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Health of It. I'm Dr. Randy here with Dr. Tom, as always, and we are Columbia's hottest podcast. We interview the best and the brightest of Columbia, and we started the show because we knew there were so many interesting people in Columbia, and we wanted to meet them and introduce them to you. So today is no exception. We have Kirsten Norton, who's a certified and licensed speech language pathologist, international board certified lactation consultant, owner of Milk and Milestones pediatric feeding service with specialized training in orofacial, myofunctional therapy, and infant massage. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you were saying that you do a lot of your work with the babies, not the mom, because whenever I think of lactation consultant, I think of mostly teaching the mother how to breastfeed.
Yes. So I'm kind of the place that you go after you get through that, and that doesn't work. So sometimes, positional changes and making sure there's plenty of milk there, things like that have already been dealt with. Mm-hmm. And then families will come to me after that because there's probably still something going on with the baby.
Yeah.
So either tension or oral ties or suck dysfunction of some sort, things like that. So do a lot of work with the infants.
So 6 months in is when they normally come see you?
No, I get them. Well, and I do sometimes still get like run-of-the-mill lactation consultations. I had one recently that was like a couple days old the first time I met them. And I do get a lot of that, but I'd get a lot around like 6 to 12 weeks or so. By the time like our suck reflex is starting to integrate, and then we realize, oh wow, there's actually lots of problems still going on. Things that we need to address.
What do you think is the worst formula and the best formula?
So I actually cannot tell you that because of my IBCLC code of ethics.
Oh,
what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just straight
Wait, they have in their
lobbying.
They have in their bylaws you can't tell people.
So you're not supposed to give your opinion. You're supposed to give like a lot of facts about them and point them in different places where they can go for information. But I'm not really, and I definitely am not supposed to take any kind of money from a formula company or anything like that.
Wow, that's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of good because you don't want to just get paid off by Nestle to have their crappy formula.
Oh, wait, kind of like our medical system,
Yeah,
that
like
the pharmaceutical companies pay our doctors.
And our entire political system.
Yes, exactly like that. Yeah.
That's wild.
I tend to think if there's more high fructose corn syrup and it's not like a woman, like doesn't mimic a woman's milk in any way, then it's probably not great for them.
Yeah.
And if it's loaded with chemicals, probably not great.
I typically tell parents to try to find corn-free options for sure.
Corn-free? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like the first ingredient in like most of them.
What about...
It's not milk, it's corn.
I just read something about high fructose corn syrup being in every single formula.
Most.
That's
Yeah.
How do you find one that doesn't?
You have to read all the ingredients.
You have to just go to a formula store?
Yeah.
Or do you order it online?
Target. Well, so
Go overseas.
yeah, a lot of people get it imported.
Yeah.
But even some of those still have corn as the first ingredient.
Oh,
A
and
lot of people-
they're loaded with chemicals too if they're getting shipped overseas. Because how else is it going to stay good?
No, like if you get it from like Germany, not like send it to China and make it and come back.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Like made
yeah.
in Germany or made in
But
France.
still, it would take. How long would it take to get here? Like by the time, if it's
Well,
good for you, it's
all
gonna go
formulas
bad.
have some
Yeah.
sort of like shelf life that's rough.
yeah. All right, so that's step number 1: is get good formula if you can.
Yeah.
What do you know? What country is well known for making good formula? Are you allowed to say that?
Germany.
Is
Yeah.
Germany the one? Did you
Yeah.
know that?
Guy, I don't think you realize how intelligent I am. Yeah.
I wouldn't have pegged Germany as the best one, but it makes sense. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Columbia Family Chiropractic, with 3 easy-to-get-to locations, one in Forest Acres, which is by Trader Joe's, one in O'Neill Court by the DMV, and one in the Northeast by Sand Hills. You'll be sure to have somewhere near you. They offer a ton of services from corrective care, on-site digital x-rays, spinal decompression for bulging or herniated discs, dry needling for injuries, pediatric care, and a Class 4 laser. They accept all your major insurances. And if you mention this ad, you'll get a discount on your first appointment. Check out their website at cfc4health.com or Google Columbia Family Chiropractic. That's cfc4 health.com. I would have thought like
And then you like
France.
homemade's a big, like that's what most people are
Yeah.
working, and they use goat's milk as the kind of main thing.
Yeah, there's the Weston Price.
Yep.
It's-
Institute.
Yep, I have had several use that. It's a really weird color and it's really thick.
Yeah.
It's like a yellowy color. Is there like caro syrup in it?
Yeah, I don't think in theirs.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
like yellow.
Hmm.
It's really interesting.
And breast milk is colostrum has a little yellow tinge to it, right?
Mhm, yep. Yeah, I work with a lot of moms who are exclusively pumping. So they, for whatever reason, usually because baby has oral motor issues going on, couldn't breastfeed but really wanted to. And so that's why they're still trying to get to the bottom. I've had a lot of, like the bottom of what's going on, the root cause of why their baby is not able to nurse. I've had a lot of parents who work exclusively pumping who go in and come to me, and we eventually get them back to the breast and get them nursing depending on all of the different variables. But
Yeah, nice.
that's like my favorite thing is when moms go from having to pump, 6-7 times a day to finally just being able to nurse baby wherever.
We had a competition with my one friend, Peter Giamforte. His wife and my wife both had kids at the same time. And I went over to his house when our kids were probably 6 months old, and he's like, "Come look what I have." And he like pulled up a freezer. He had like the number of ounces of frozen milk counted. So it just turned into a bit of a competition. We had thousands of ounces of pump milk.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
but it's
fantastic.
kind of awesome if you can. Like, why not pump if you have extra, right? Because then you can give it to them later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't there somebody on TLC that's they're like hyperlactive? It's like their job, like literally producing gallons upon gallons of milk.
Yeah, I've had patients like that
That'd be
who
great.
will make gallon,
That's all they do. Just ripping
literally a
milk all
gallon
day.
a day.
Yeah.
It's just the sound of the pump is so irritating. Like after my wife quit doing it, I could still hear the sound.
I don't know how old your kids are, but they've gotten a lot quieter.
Are they? They're pretty old.
His was made out of wood, and there was a guy
No, it was-
churning a wheel.
No, we bought like the best brand we could. I forget the name of it, but we kept being told that there's pharmaceutical companies or formula companies who make certain pumps, and they're so bad that everybody just quits and moves to formula. So you had to get one specifically that a formula manufacturer had no interest in, and then they work great.
Yep. Yeah. They've gotten really good recently. And we also know a lot more about flange sizes. And like went to my car to see if I had like the ruler thing. And my grad student said that we do not have one of those, but you can like measure your flange size as well.
See we talked to somebody about this before, and I think the brilliant idea is like custom nipple, flange. Like, what if you did a custom nipple, bottle head? so that you, like, we could get in the business of just taking molds of nips.
And the
then
kid gets,
the
because
kid
the kid gets used to it?
Yes, the exact nipple.
They've also gotten really good with bottles recently. There's a new one, the Nook Perfect Match. I've been really liking that one because it is like super pliable like a breast and is a lot more shaped. There's so much marketing out there. A lot of the bottle companies can market themselves as breastfeeding friendly, and they have these like short little tiny nipples.
Yeah.
But the baby can't get like a good latch at all, and it's very
See, that's what,
counterintuitive.
I feel like there's a big market there.
Yeah.
And nowadays, it can't be that hard with the 3D printers to just get a quick mold of a nip, print it, and now I'll make all your bottles off of that.
Maybe. You also have to, I don't know if the 3D printing, I guess it can be like food safe. I don't know how exactly that works.
Well, and then you could also make it so that it's molded to the mom so the pump fits perfectly too.
Yep.
Potentially. Yeah.
Pump piece to the nip, yeah. I mean, what are we? We're just
gonna be great.
full of great ideas.
If anyone wants to take that, feel free.
Yeah, free idea.
Yeah, I wish we were in the like manufacturing space because I think this would be big. Now, what is a classic case that you take on? Like, give us kind of like your normal.
Okay, so a lot of times I get babies coming in. They'll have worked with a local lactation consultant or one through their pediatrician. And that lactation consultant has done like a really good job doing like all of the things that they can. And some of them here in town are even so good about doing a lot with baby too. But I get a lot like that who come to me. A lot of times the IBCLCs will send to me for true feeding therapy. And so they'll come in and we'll do an hour of, I call it lengthen and strengthen. So I do a lot of massage at the beginning, get the kid nice and relaxed, and then we work on building the muscle from there. So everything from cheeks, a lot of babies, especially if they're born premature, don't have the sucking pads. So we'll do things with that. I do a lot of tummy time included in my therapy, getting babies, relaxed throughout their whole body, and then work on building their core strength as well. And then I really get in and do a lot of work on the tongue, under the tongue, glove finger, doing whatever, working on different exercises and strengthening.
Do you see a lot of the tongue ties? Like that's been a very popular thing in the last probably decade. What percentage are being birthed like that?
Yeah. So the amount that's in the general population, all the research studies suggest 10 to 15% or so. But like percent of them that come to me, it's like most of them because people that don't have ties or oral dysfunction aren't coming to me.
Right.
Most of the time. Sometimes I do get really little babies who just need a little positional change or, this is, how we hold baby and to get them to open their mouth wide enough to latch and things like that. But a majority of what I get is not that.
Yeah. And then up to what age are you working with the baby? Like what's your oldest?
One of my favorite things to do is
41, Randy Kloss. He's in this room.
So I do have orofacial myofunctional patients that are older, and I do have some feeding therapy patients that are older, but I will sometimes get babies when they're little, and it's like we've, thrown the book at trying to get to the bottom of it, and then we find out later we get genetic testing back and there's a trisomy, and there's like some kind of genetic syndrome going on or something like that, and then I will end up with that kid for feeding therapy and be with them through, I even do like language therapy with them as well. I have a caseload of about 10-ish kids that are medically complex that I work with as well that have weekly sessions.
Yeah.
So that's about 50% of my caseload. The other 50% is more infant consultations that are more rotating. But I have a kid on my caseload right now who I started working with her when she got out of the NICU for feeding therapy, and she is turning 5 in June. So.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So 5 years you've been working with them.
Yeah, she's graduated from feeding therapy. She is just working on language goals now. So she is on the spectrum. And I've been with this family through like their diagnosis and things like that. So, I'm pretty attached.
Well, and if your kid's not eating, that's stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't know why, because it's a natural thing to want to eat, right? And you'll do an assessment. And what are the normal things that normally get weeded out before they get to you?
Positional changes, like parents who just don't know which hand to hold baby, how, like, sometimes if you're like grasping their cheeks, you'll end up like causing that root response. And so the kid's just like rooting around and not wanting to latch and things like that. All that kind of stuff gets weeded out before me. Maternal milk supply issues a lot of times. Though since I went from just a certified lactation counselor to taking my IBCLC exam and becoming an IBCLC, I get more of the like ones that I also have to weed that part out too. But yeah, usually that kind of stuff has been weeded out before they come to me.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on nipple size and like, because I hear about inverted nipples and then like I have tiny nipples. So I can imagine, thankfully I don't have to breastfeed, so that doesn't affect me. But
most men have
Casey
smaller
Casey
nipples.
wants to.
I had a dad recently ask me about that, and I was like, I'm gonna send you some resources, but I don't do that.
You sent the dad resources? What was the dad? The dad
Wait,
was
you
asking
didn't
for
tell him?
himself.
You didn't tell him it's just not possible?
Well, obviously he wasn't gonna make milk, but he
he
wanted
just
like ways he could bond with the baby.
Oh, God.
Is that a new thing?
I don't know.
That's
Well,
the
I
first
don't
you've
know.
heard of it?
Well, I had a theory about men's nipples. We can come back to it, but I'll share it.
That's
okay.
fine. Go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, always the question is, why do men have nipples? And then my thought process was that when it comes time to wean the baby from mom's nipples, you throw them on dad's nips so that nothing comes out. The
Yeah.
baby's like, oh, like I'm on a nip, but it's not. Otherwise, like, what is the point of the male nipple?
Yeah.
Symmetry? Like,
No, I've heard of that exact scenario.
so back to then Randy's inverted nipples and nipple size. Is there anything that you've seen?
Yeah, I had a mom. She went from the standard size that came with her pump. She was using a 27 flame size. Millimeters.
27 deep?
Like circumference.
So around.
Or not circumference, diameter.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've taken geometry class.
Yeah.
So we took her down to a 14 after I measured her, and her pump output has gone up exponentially, even though she's almost 6 months postpartum.
Wow.
Nice,
But
yeah.
it's a kid I'm working. He was the NICU baby. He's more medically complex, and mom just happened to mention, like, we weren't doing lactation stuff at all, and she just happened to mention, like, oh, you have any tips for increasing supply? And it's like, oh, maybe, like, I can also schedule you a lactation consult and do feeding therapy and have your lactation stuff as well. Lo and behold, she's using much larger size than she needed, and it really helped.
So you take a ruler and you measure
They
edge of the areola to the other edge of the areola, up, top, and bottom.
They make little circles. So you I wish I had one. It's like a little card, and it has circles of different sizes, and you just hold the card up.
Kind of like a thing at Lowe's, like when you screw in a screw or a nut.
Yeah, when you bring your screw and you're like, what size do I
Yes.
need?
Yeah.
And mm-hmm.
That, and what about, so you always measure width. What about
Not the
depth?
areola though. Like
No, it's not the
It's-
areola.
it's not the areola.
A lot of
nipple.
people, yes, a lot of people measure the
Yeah.
areola.
See,
It's
that's where it
actually the
gets-
nipple.
Yeah.
Is the areola just kind of irrelevant?
Well, it has a lot of receptors. That measures what the
Montgomery
baby
glands.
needs.
Yep. It also will output milk, and especially when the baby's little, and colostrum, like the Montgomery glands around on the areola will secrete, so that way it gives baby the smell to know where to go.
Yeah.
And then they also get substantially darker, so that way babies with really bad eyesight know where to go.
Oh, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
That's why, they get darker during pregnancy, and then slowly postpartum they get lighter again.
Wow.
Here all this time, Randy was shining flashlights on Allison.
Well, the smell. I was like, what's that smell? And why do I want to go over there?
Yeah. Women also, when they're lactating, have significantly increased BO, and it's for baby to
Really?
find them.
Fine mom.
To like run away from the armpits and go towards the chest.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yep.
I'm anti-BO, and that would work for me. Now, sticking with nipples, roughening up nipples. Randy is a big proponent of prepping mom for breastfeeding, and that you have to rough the nipples up. Is that a clinical thing?
I don't think so. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, here's my philosophy. I'm not letting him explain my philosophy.
Yeah, because if you can callus them up.
So my philosophy is that lots of women stop breastfeeding because it's harder, it's painful. Like you just aren't used to it, right? A baby like biting you and constantly sucking on it, and but if you rough them up a little bit beforehand, then what the baby does actually is less than what you've been used to, and it's not that bad. It's like when you run a marathon, I had people telling me, oh, just run to 21 miles and you'll be perfectly fine. The last 5 miles take care of themselves. Worst advice I've ever heard, because when I hit mile 21, my body quit working and like the last 5 miles was terrible. But if I'd been training at 31 miles and then I only had to run 26,
Easy peasy.
so easy. My body's like, wait, are we done already?
Yep.
Potentially, but it shouldn't hurt. If it hurts, then the latch is wrong. Or like it should feel like a gentle tug. When the latch is good, it should be a gentle tug. So you shouldn't have to rough up the nipples, because if there's good oral function and there's a good proper latch, then we shouldn't have to rough them up.
But still, the amount of time that someone's just like,
I mean, yeah.
It's just
You're
a
not
volume
advising.
game.
You're
I'm
not
not-
advising
I
somebody
wouldn't
that.
advise that.
You wouldn't
yeah.
advise it.
But I
You
mean,
might put it in your toolbox just in
So-
case.
I mean, prenatal hand expression. The last couple weeks, doing some hand expression to collect colostrum
That probably
would serve a
roughens them,
similar purpose. You're not touching the nipple, then you're touching the areola, but or right outside the areola of the breast.
All right.
What sort of techniques did you use, Randy, to roughen up nipples?
Well, so Allison said that she had like a towel. She was like, you just rub like a towel against it hard.
Yeah.
Like a
But I didn't really help her with that. But
sandpaper and you just do
Oh, no,
different
please don't do
levels.
that.
We're on 220 grit today.
well, I always think of kids, they just bite. Like once they hit a certain age, they just kind of bite, right? Like they figure out how to bite, and then you'll hear every once in a while, like, ow,
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah. Well, and especially a lot of babies with oral dysfunction down the road, like mom will get through it in the beginning, and then down the road they'll realize, ow, this is so painful, because now what the baby's been doing, like chomping at the breast instead of using their tongue, hurts, because baby has teeth now. And so I get parents who like have made it to 6 months, baby pops their first tooth, and they're like, no, we can't. Even though I had a goal of a year or 2 years or whatever my goal was, we're not going to make that because it's painful. So I get a lot of those babies in who come to see me.
Yeah.
Because
What's the oldest child that you know is breastfeeding still, or that you've seen?
I've had a feeding therapy kid who had a lot of other things going on, like a lot, and he went up to about 5 or 6.
6.
And that was where he was getting most of his nutrition from as a super medically complex kid. And yeah, his mom is a rock star.
What's your ideal time for, like, what would be your goal for and maybe a range for women to shoot for?
I'd say at least 2. There's a lot of really
2
good,
years.
which is in the South is very taboo to say. Once that baby hits 1, a lot of people are like, okay, cut them off. But there's a lot of health benefits for both mom and baby to go till 2.
Yeah.
Like
nice.
long-term, like fighting cancer and things like that for mom and for baby.
And I've always heard that the kid usually just stops when they're ready.
Yeah.
Like both of our daughters stopped at different times, and it was just like
Yeah.
a natural point where neither of them wanted to do it anymore, and they just stopped. It wasn't like you're cut off, and it wasn't like my wife's trying to get her to and she wouldn't. It was just like they both felt like, all right, we're not doing this, or like we're done with that.
Yeah. Yeah. They like the don't offer don't offer it, and they'll ask when they want it, and they'll stop when they're ready.
Yep.
Yeah. But I've seen, like, again, another TLC show that there's adults that are still breastfeeding, like as a thing,
Interesting.
like men. Have you seen that?
No, I know about the bodybuilders who buy breast milk to put in their protein drinks.
Yeah.
To get all of the nutrients.
Yeah, there was a special that literally, like, and I don't think it was a fetish. I think it was like they just enjoyed it and nutrients, and I don't know, but
Yeah. I mean, people drink cow's milk.
yeah,
That's human milk.
There was
It's
a
actually
place.
designed for humans.
love that.
Right.
I mean, they the cave people used to feed until 5 or 6.
Really?
Breastfeeding. Yeah, there's a lot of anthropology studies about that.
See that?
6 years is a long time.
That's a very long time, but people do it.
I never tasted breast milk,
I didn't either.
Kirsten. Kirsten, now it's your turn.
I have tasted my own. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have. I have a 2-year-old. So for a while she was not wanting a bottle, and I think she just had
Really?
a preference. And I was worried that I had high lipase, which is a common problem where women's breast milk turns. It's almost like a sour taste, but it's just from an increased lipase in the milk. It's not actually bad, but some people say it can taste soapy, and a lot of babies with bottle refusal will choose not to want.
Is that
A
due to
bottle?
like certain foods or like?
It can be. Yeah, it
Really?
can be related to diet, but it can also be related to like increased, I don't know if it's increased histamines, but just increased duration of time that you, like if it's been in the freezer, if it's been previously frozen or fresh. So a lot of people will, if they have high lipase milk, they'll scald it on the stovetop to a certain temperature. I don't know the exact temperature
Like
off the top of
almost boil it? Or?
almost boil
Yeah.
it, but like a temperature right below that for a certain amount of time, not to kill the nutrients, but to kill off that lipase or burn off the lipase.
Yeah.
What would be the things that you'd be looking for if you were going to taste it? Like, we kind of alluded to this before. Like, if you were going to taste 10 women's milk, what would you be wanting to taste?
Kind of like a
What do you
sommelier.
I mean,
This
well,
one's from Brad's.
Has this been aged?
well, so breast milk is sweet, so you'd expect it to be sweet.
Sweet.
I don't know what I'd necessarily look for. I have heard anecdotal stories about people like changing their diets and having like a different taste to it. But
And different stages, I've also heard the milk composition is different
Yeah.
for 2 months than 6 months or 12 months.
yeah, you get like it's super heavy fat at the beginning, and then eventually it becomes a lot more similar to water, a lot more watered down. But I don't necessarily, I don't know. I don't specialize in that as much.
Okay.
I have my IBCLC, but I do a lot more with babies.
Tell us what IBCLC stands for.
So it's an international board certification for lactation consulting. So
Nice.
when I first started, I went to SLP school and then went to the NICU here in Columbia for my final internship. Right before I went to the NICU, I went and took a week-long class and got my CLC as a lactation counselor. And so it's not like a full lactation credential, but it gives you like a really good base understanding. And then I collected hours over 5 years of working
Wow.
to be able to sit for the exam, because you need 1,000 clinical hours to become an IBCLC.
Nice.
So I sat for that last March, and then last summer I got my IBCLC and was like, okay, this is the final step that I need to really like go out on my own.
Is there a hands-on component of that, like where you have patients that they test you on?
So no, that the hours are either, depending on the amount that you get, they're either mentored or not mentored, but self-collected. But the exam is very clinical. There's a lot of pictures and like, what would you do here? And very, like the questions are, you really have to kind of know your stuff to know what the answer is clinically.
Nice.
Wow. And what about the husbands or the dads? How involved do they get with you, or is it mostly just mothers?
I get some dads. So yeah, for infant consults versus like feeding therapy, I have some dads who stay home with their medically complex kids that I are very involved. But as far as like the lactation stuff, I feel like a lot of the parents who make it and who get through the hard patch, because usually when you're coming to me, things are really hard, like rock bottom hard. A lot of times when I see the most successes when there's family support, dad support. You know, dad's doing the diaper changes and making the meals and doing all the things, so that way mom can focus on feeding. It's really important.
Nice. So my son had a feeding issue, which is pretty wild. And it was, so we think he like struggled initially to latch. Then we didn't realize the tongue tie. This was like pre-tongue tie stuff. Then he started latching fine and like gained weight. So like by the time he was 1, everything seemed kind of normal. But when we introduced food, he was like anti-food.
Yeah.
And then so he would do the pouches and like the soft stuff, and he would do some smoothies here and there and juice and yada, yada, yada. But then he would not eat. So then we started, of course, speech pathology. We started the feeding therapist, and we went through a variety of them. And I was wondering this, and then I'll continue a story. I think one of them literally like tied him down, like in a chair, but like kind of like restrained his arms to try to get him to like get food in there. And I want to say like we like traveled for that one, and it was like, so I'm in the room thinking like, this doesn't seem right. Is that even a part of a practice just in general?
Outdated ones. I mean,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. It's not best practice
Like
to ever restrain a child. I mean, in a high chair so they can sit and have good body support and alignment, but like restraining a child for any kind of speech therapy is really not best practice.
He didn't love it. So then what we think happened, so this went on till he literally got to a point of almost 3, maybe 3, and had to do a feeding tube.
Yeah.
So we didn't find like the right person until like probably, again, 2 and a half, almost 3 years old. So started the journey, but it started with like, he had to hear about food, like reading from a book. Then he had to like see the food. Then he had to like smell it. Then he had to touch it. Then it was like a ladder. It was wild. Like he had to kiss it, lick it, like
the sensory hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
I do that
I was
all
one of
the
those
time.
parents that literally drove 5 days a week. Once we found the right person, and like I remember him putting something in his mouth and like crying.
Yeah.
Because it was insane.
Yeah.
But it was like Randy mentioned before. It was like, what, like pooping. You don't teach a kid to poop, and you don't teach a kid to eat. But we had a kid that was like, wouldn't eat. And not until years later did I like realize, or when we had the tongue tie corrected. So like even a part of that, it didn't change anything because we think it was like he developed an anxiety and like a fear of like, if something goes in my mouth, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So it had to be like broken down to like food is safe before he could even like think about food.
Yeah.
It was a crazy journey.
Yeah. I see kids like that. That's like a very common thing. I'll get extremely selective, not always with G-tubes. I do have several on my caseload with G-tubes, and I do G-tube weaning with my medically complex kids. But I have had patients come in for an orofacial myofunctional evaluation, and then parents are like, oh yeah, all we eat is chicken nuggets and pouches. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, so we're going to need a lot of sensory play, a lot of sensory exploration, and like very slowly work into this food thing. But a lot of times it all coincides. So it starts with a physiologic etiology like tongue tie, or so often I send kids all the time, ENT, GI, all of the different genetics, all these different places. I've even had one who ended up with a cardiac issue, and we were fatiguing. And it was like, let's see if we can come up with why this is happening. So I'm so big in like root cause, trying to figure out why, because if not, it can become super
Crazy.
Sensory. Yeah.
And that's where I was like worried about him going down the autistic spectrum because of the sensory stuff that was happening and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the like wild part to me was the understanding that he's so nutrient deficient that his symptoms of sensory, like the fatigue, everything was like he's not getting nutrients. So the feeding tube itself, like we were able to like get just put straight into his body nutrients.
Yep.
Then his like everything, cognition, sensory, all that stuff started going away as we trained him to eat by mouth.
Yep.
Then we set a goal, like we want to get this out within the year, did it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And like that whole journey though, I remember being in like the pit and being like, who do you talk to?
Yeah.
Because we were going to feeding therapists and but it wasn't a person. I wish I knew the person's name because I want to give him credit. They moved to Tennessee. She was unbelievable. And not only that, I think would take the aggressive approach of like, he needs to be seen daily.
Yeah.
Which I was like, yes, finally. Because some of the feeding therapists were like, yep, we'll see him once a week or every other week. I was like, that's not making any change. He's not changing anything for a 1 hour session once a week.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of feeding. I have one that I've seen multiple days a week for feeding therapy for that exact same reason, because we wouldn't see a change if it
It's
wasn't
just like,
multiple days a
it's
week.
time and repetition and all that stuff.
Yeah. And it's a lot emotionally for the kid and the mom. So we always make sure that there's good, like a behavior counselor or behavioral psychology there as well on the team.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Wow.
Wild.
This is an awesome win, though, that he got his G2 belt.
Oh,
It's
unbelievable.
so exciting.
Yeah. No, like he's been through some stuff. Like he's an unreal kid now, like super kind. Some of it though, like I don't think he has a lot of memory of it. So it was like 3 to 5 years old. That's when it was like, even before that he was struggling, but 3 to 5 was like we were in a car driving 45 minutes to an hour, just even one way, there for an hour, coming back just to get him back. And it was, but I just always kept going back to like, what is the freaking like who? I remember like we had DSS called on us by our preschool because he was like so thin, just from like a parent. Like the preschool knew, hey, he's not really eating. Like he's gonna be tired. He's gonna look like a skeleton. And we're like on a journey. We're like, and so DSS showed up at our house. I was like, dude, come in. There's no cages. My kid just doesn't eat.
Yeah.
But if you freaking figure it out, I was like, I'll give you $10,000. I'll give you whatever amount of money you want to get my kid to eat.
Yeah.
You know, and we were like, had no clue. So it was like finally enough like searches and enough friends of friends being like, oh, try this lady.
Yeah.
And then it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you find the right fit,
Yeah.
just how much can fall into place.
And I feel like it's more popular now. And maybe that's just me, but
Yeah.
there wasn't many of you
Yeah.
10 years ago, I didn't think.
There wasn't even very many of me 5 years ago when I first
Right.
started doing all this.
Yes.
I worked for a practice that kind of sort of specialized in it. And I got a lot of training there. I did a lot of continuing ed, but and I took a pediatric feeding course in college at USC, but I did a lot of continuing ed outside of just that base to get.
What do you think
that
the
knowledge.
right foods, like, so what do you start kids with? Just
Yeah. So I do a lot of, I'm in between. So some people do like the puree first. Some people do strictly baby led, like let me hand you this whole steak. And
Yes.
we definitely did some of that with my daughter, but to me, it doesn't really matter what food consistency you start with, whatever you're comfortable with. But I really like kids feeding themselves as early as possible. So they learn my hands are doing a good thing. They're feeding myself.
Right.
And they get this hand, mouth, brain, gut connection. Like I can do this. I can feed myself. From about 6 months or so, I really preach for showing all the signs of readiness. I do like a transitions to solids consult with families who maybe aren't seeing me for actual therapy, but they can come in for a 1 hour consult and I'll tell them, I'll run through all my different tools and a big folder with things and give them a lot of information like that. But really, them feeding themselves is the big thing. I don't care, whatever you're comfortable starting with, purees, solids, a steak, whatever it is, just as long as the kid is feeding themselves most of the time.
Our philosophy in our house was that if you get something too sweet the very first time you eat it, it's going to be miserable trying to eat something else. Like if you get Cheerios as your first food,
Yeah.
then someone tries to hand you an avocado, you're going to be like, why would I ever eat an avocado in my life? Or
Yeah.
you have a Pop-Tart or something, and then someone tries to hand you an apple. You're like, no, thank you. I never want to eat this. So we didn't give any sugar, any like sugary or grains thing. I think our first daughter, when she turned 1, she got blueberries. That was like her first sweet thing. But I felt like her palate kind of got used to eating vegetable and greens and peas and carrots and all the other, quote unquote healthy foods or vegetables before she was really exposed to anything else. And I think that made a difference for her because and the reason why we went down that road is because I constantly kept hearing from parents, my kid's a picky eater. My kid doesn't want to eat this. It's you don't understand. My kid won't eat vegetables. And they'd give them McDonald's and say, at least they're eating something. But it was like, well, it's kind of like giving if you give someone, if you give a something that is so delicious immediately, I just can't imagine going back to it.
Yeah. Well, so breast milk is sweet. So they already have like an acclimation to sweet, and they do prefer sweet. But yes, so we started, one of my daughter's first foods was sweet potato, and I don't think her gut was ready for the starch. And so if we do it again another time around, I'm still not ready for that yet, but the next time we go through it, we're not going to give starches or grains super early on because of the same way. Even though I do this for a living and I like to think I'm good at what I do, my own child has put me through so much. I think there is a lot to what you're saying, and especially starches and carbs, like breads and things like that. We will probably hold off on until 1 at least. I had a family who they held off until almost 2 to give that kind of stuff, and I haven't worked with them in a while, so I don't know how their kid is now, but she swore by it, and I think it went really well for them.
I don't think anybody's ever going to say, you know what, I wish I gave my kid more Pop-Tarts when they were first born, first started eating.
Exactly.
But even making your own food, I think, is a good way to do it. And parents don't realize you don't have to just go to the store and buy all the store-bought stuff. You can make your own food for your kids, and then you know exactly what's in it, too.
Exactly.
You just steam. I don't exactly remember what we did. You steam it, or you
boil
it or soften it.
Bake it.
Yeah.
You can mash it up.
Yeah. All of the above.
Beautiful.
Yep.
When you do oral facial is it an assessment or what?
With older kids.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
And
So
who would like you recommend if a parent's listening, like that maybe they could look at some signs of their kid and be like, oh, this would be a candidate.
Oh yeah. So I do take on a select few orofacial myofunctional clients. So I took a training for that back in 2020 when I had a lot of extra time on my hands, as we all did during COVID. So I took my training through the International Association of Orofacial Myology. It was like a 28-hour course all about muscles in the face, how they move, how to strengthen them, how to do all of these things. You have to be able to follow directions to follow a true orofacial myofunctional program. So they say about 4 years old and above. I usually get referrals for that from like orthodontists or parents who are seeking out a second opinion about their child's oral function. And then I'll work alongside like orthodontists and things like that for palatal expansion. But things that you're thinking about, I also work with that same kind of thing going on with younger kids, but it's more play-based. So you're not following these directions like hold your tongue up for a minute. I'm going to hold a timer on and you're going to hold your tongue up. It's more like let me follow you around the room while you're playing and use a tool to try to elevate your tongue for you kind of thing. In general, warning signs for an oral dysfunction, a baby that has their mouth open all the time, or a child that has their mouth open all the time, a child that snores, a child that has, deep dark circles under their eyes, hard to wake in the mornings, a baby or a child who can't stick their tongue out to their lips, around their lips, or hitting the back of your teeth. So a lot of times children with tongue ties or
Yeah.
oral dysfunction can't like go to clear, and they're very cavity prone because of that. I have children with chronic headaches who come because they have TMJ pain at a really young age. Crowded baby teeth. That's another thing that is a red flag. If your baby teeth are super crowded or touching, it's a red flag.
Yeah. Okay.
There can be a bunch of different things going on. It's a lot. It's kind of like a puzzle.
I remember my son had like really chubby cheeks because he just wasn't using the muscles too. And like until somebody pointed it out, it was just like, oh, that's really cute. Like he's just a big chubby. But it was like, no, he has literally no tone in his cheek and jaw.
So I have a lot of tricks up my sleeves for both little ones, babies, toddlers, and older children to adults for cheek strength and also jaw strength, because a lot of times the jaw strength isn't there either.
You see the adults now doing the jazzerciser thing where they're like chewing on the ball? Is that, you think that's something that'd be good?
Yeah, I love the myofunctional. I wish I would have brought one. It's a little silicone tool that you put in your mouth and you just sit and chew it. Adults can have them as young as 6 months. They have different sizes. I have a whole sizing kit with all the different sizes. Babies can, use it to strengthen their jaw as well, all the way through adults.
Did people get sore? Like, I feel like you'd get really sore with that.
Yeah, you can. You have to work up to it. So I have a kid like that they started with like half of a Bluey episode. They'd watch, a couple minutes on TV. Oh, and then we worked our way up to the whole Bluey episode. And like, they work on chewing the whole time that they're watching a show or reading a book or something like that. You do have to work up to it, even as an adult.
I've seen some of those vibrating tools too. Do you have any of those?
Yeah. We have them here in town. Arc Therapeutic is here in Columbia. They're actually close to here. We might stop by after this. And it's,
can you go in there?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was just like they manufacture them there and send them all over the country.
So they don't advertise that you can go in there, but I go in there sometimes and grab what I need. But I will have looked online first and have like a list and then just say, hey, I need to get all of this.
I remember again when Connor had issues and I was like, wait, it's here in Columbia? I was like, what are the odds of that? But then I was like, no, you can't go there. And I almost went.
They probably don't want people like off the street to go there.
Right.
But I mean, you can go pick things up if you know what you want ahead of time. But yeah. And
Like
Talk Tools is the other one. They're actually out of Charleston. And
What is it? Talk Tools?
yeah, it's like their rival competitor.
Oh.
Ooh, South Carolina just producing
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah.
Can you get the adult jazzerciser thing there?
There
That you
is
were
like
telling?
not quite, not like the one that you see like on ads or whatever.
Yeah.
But the one that you recommend.
Oh, the myofunctional. No, it's out of Australia.
Oh.
My friend Shannon, I think y'all interviewed her a while ago, from Avoda Massage.
Oh yeah.
She sells them. She bought a bunch
Shannon
to
has
be
some
able to sell them.
in her studio. Sweet.
Yep. And then there's a dental office in town too that does.
Nice.
I don't have like a retail license, so I just order them for families as needed.
Yeah. If an adult wants to learn how to suck better, what do you recommend? Because didn't you say there's suck dysfunction?
Yeah, with a
Does that-
baby.
That doesn't carry into adulthood?
I mean, I'm not that kind of therapist.
Okay, like I was thinking lollipops.
Okay. I mean, adults have tongue ties, and adults can get orofacial myofunctional therapy.
Because I feel like once you grow out of that phase, like there are adults that have issues, and are there adult feeding therapists unless you have like a medical condition?
I've worked with several adults. I don't advertise that anymore, but I have worked with several adults when I worked at a private practice.
Like I think of it kind of like I think of it like if you want your performance to be better, who's coaching you on that?
So I have a lot who will come to see me for like snoring and like things like that.
That'd be like a good sign.
And sleep apnea, diagnosed sleep apnea, things like that. But yeah, and I mean, I guess theoretically the exercises from the Myo program would.
Because, and that's what I think. I think once they created that ball that like became popular, it made people think like, wait, there are people that like, you never think of face muscles, jaw muscles, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So as an adult, if you could get like a performance coach or somebody that was like don't know if I have issues, but I'd like to be assessed, make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to. That might be a whole new industry.
Yeah, well, orofacial myofunctional therapy is that's what that is, and I do evals. There's a few other people in town who do them and have the training.
Even like looking at the palate and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because can you change that after a certain age?
So there is a lot of new stuff coming out about that. You do have to break that midline suture of the palate in order to get a true adult expansion.
Really?
And so it's not comfortable.
Surgically?
You can do surgical expansion. There's also like a few different devices, like orthodontic appliances and devices that do adult expansion.
Gotcha.
But it's not comfortable as an adult. But there's a few like kind of leaders in my industry that have gotten expansion as an adult.
When does the palate close? Like what age is that?
So
Approximately?
around puberty. So you want to do expansion as early as possible. A lot of people won't start it until like 5 or 6. At 3 and 4 is even an appropriate age if they'll sit through it. But
definitely before like 12. Or,
yeah. The sooner the better.
We just went in for Connor just to like get assessed for brace or orthodontic, and for that reason too, because we had an orthodontist on the show that recommended. I was like, I should do that before he gets too old. And it was good, so he didn't need any expansion. But I bet there's so many people out there that if they just knew, take your kid in at 7 I think it was like, I don't even know if it cost anything, to be honest. It might be weird. Or maybe it was like a low, because they didn't do anything. They just assessed it to see like, when will it be time for braces? Do you need to have an expander or not? And then it was like, no, we'll see you in, a year or whatever for braces. But
yeah. A lot of people, are also just looking for straight teeth, and they're not necessarily thinking like about airway health in general. And it's a really important part because if you have a really high and narrow palate, that's the floor of your nose. So it can impact when you have a high and narrow palate, it impacts your nasal turbinates. Where they are. It can cause a deviated septum. It can cause like all of these issues down the road.
Do implants cause any sort of issues, or have you had any issues where you had to tell somebody to take them out, or
a dental implant?
Breast implants.
Oh, okay.
Back to that.
Okay.
Back to breast.
If they're behind the muscle, usually it's fine.
So in front of the muscle, problematic?
Yeah, and a reduction is usually a little bit more of an issue because they have to remove the nipple a lot of times, and they don't always, depending on the surgical procedure, the way that it's done. They take off the nipple, and then you sever the ducts when you do that. So
the entire nipple they take off?
Yeah, minus like,
Wow.
I don't know all of the techniques. I know kind of just like the base knowledge of that. But
you've seen how many pairs of breasts, I guess? Is it the right way to ask that?
Yeah, a lot.
Estimate, like 1,000? Couple hundred?
Hundreds. Probably under 1,000.
Has there been some that sometimes we've looked at back sometimes and it's like, whoa, we've seen thousands of spines. Is there a breast that you were like, wow, I've never seen anything like this? Like 3 nipples or
nothing
like that?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
that would be interesting if there was 3 nipples and you could breastfeed out of all 3.
That would be interesting. Sometimes you get like a false nipple. I had to study all of that when I took my exam, but I've never seen anything like that. No.
Or like implants that were just nothing that.
No, to me, nothing. I've seen it all. Yeah.
And who's referring to you primarily, or can people reach out to you and privately? Yeah,
people can come and schedule. They can self-schedule on my website for lactation and infant feeding consults in general. You don't, because I'm an SLP primarily, you don't have to still be breastfeeding to come see me. So I do. It's really easy on my website just to self book. And then if you want true feeding therapy, I do have a wait list for that. And so your pediatrician has to send a script. So.
And does insurance ever cover it if the pediatrician sends it?
So for me personally, I'm a one-woman show. I do everything for my company by myself. So I'm only in network with medically complex Medicaid and then BabyNet.
Yep.
And that's it. And then for infant feeding consults, once I got my IBCLC, I'm in network with a lot of insurances for infant feeding. But if you have a private insurance for feeding therapy, I'm not your person for that because it gets expensive.
Do you have an office that they go to, or do you go to them?
A little bit of both. I have an office. It's 300 square foot. It's in town of Lexington limits. It's basically a little room with a couch.
Nice.
And I have families who come to see me from pretty far away. And so it's like a place that they can go to. But then I also, my medically complex caseload, I go to them.
Go to them. Yeah.
I saw on your Instagram that you had photos of it. I think a year ago you opened it there.
So I started my lease in September.
Oh, September.
Yeah. I started
2024. Sweet.
Yeah,
So you're young in the game here.
Yeah. So I've been practicing in a private practice, and then I started my own thing.
Yeah, nice.
Around this time last year, I started working on that, and then I went and really started all of it after I got my IBCLC in July.
And does your husband help you with the back end stuff quite a bit? I've talked to a lot of women who they're kind of like the face, and then their husband, they're like, hey, I need you to do the payroll and accounting and taxes and stuff in the back end.
No,
you have to do that?
I do it all.
Wow.
So my husband, he lets me kind of just do my thing.
Bruce Norton.
Yep, Bruce Norton.
What's his middle name?
Hartley.
Oh, that's a nice name.
Yeah.
And what does Bruce do?
He is a lawyer.
Nice.
Yep. He works for Lexington, County of Lexington.
What kind of lawyer?
He prosecutes.
What?
Yeah, he's an assistant solicitor.
Really? So does he tell you all about his case? You guys come home and you're like, hey, I had this, and he had all kinds of stories?
Yeah, I hear a lot. I hear a lot of it. Yeah.
How'd you meet him?
At USC. It was my sophomore year.
He was a senior.
He was in his second attempt at a sophomore year.
Fifth year?
Yeah, so we're the same age.
He should have been a junior.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, he should have been a junior.
But just wanted to do sophomore over again.
Yeah, he was. He says he majored in fraternity studies his freshman year.
Yes.
He was very good at
Love
fraternity
that.
his freshman year. And so
What fraternity was he in?
Sigma Chi.
No.
USC. Yeah.
That's what I was in.
At USC?
Dude, I got to hang out with Bruce. I got to talk to him about the handshake. I kind of forget the secret one.
Okay, I actually think I know it.
Do
because
you?
it was very similar to, you're not supposed to say it. But, I probably shouldn't say that he knows.
Were you in a sorority?
Yeah, and ours was very similar. It's weirdly similar.
No kidding.
Yeah, Phi Mu at USC.
Phi Mu. We didn't have that. I went to Pitt.
Okay.
So, I'll have to get with him.
Yeah.
Do some Sigma Chi stuff.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he'd love to. We have a composite.
Keg stands.
We have a composite in our house because it's of his pledge year. It's massive.
What year was he? I was a fall 02. It's a long time ago.
He was fall 12.
10 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, tell him I can still party.
Okay.
I'm a good time.
I'll let him know. I'm sure he'd.
So he's working as a lawyer. You're opening your own business. Well, you have a 1.5-year-old.
She's 2.
Now
She's 2, and it was 1.5 when I started everything, and she is kind of the reason I wanted to kind of go off on my own, just to be able to. Well, the idea was to work less.
Never happens.
The opposite of that happened for sure. But yeah, she put us through a lot when she was a baby. She was the one who screams the entire time you're in a car. So I got it. I'd been working with infants for years, and I developed so much more empathy.
Yeah.
By what she put us
I was going to
through.
say, you're incredibly calm and patient, and to be around children screaming and tough cases and all that, that's not easy.
Yeah.
That's the least.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. I think I get some sound sensitivity issues where I just got to get out of there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I spent a majority of the car ride to school this morning with my child screaming for her dad. So
Really?
Really?
yeah, like screaming for
Women just love Sigma guys.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Bruce.
And Bruce specifically.
Do you want to talk about some of your oral fixation issues?
Dude, what do I got? Give
Do
me
you know
a
bite?
So he's super, super weird about liquids or anything that anyone else's liquid has touched.
Yeah. Like
Like germs?
like if Randy drank off of this, like this is my drink. Okay. If his lips touch this, I'm not drinking it anymore. It's got to go through the whole washer.
That's just germs.
But it's not because
I think
of
it's pretty
germs.
normal. It's not necessarily germs. Like dry germs, like if he touched this, there's like that's fine. I could.
But
It's like something about his saliva. Like my brain goes into like gross saliva sitting there, like I'm drinking his saliva or anything liquidy especially from people.
So if that was like
And
a
especially
food,
Randy.
if that was like a food, I would say you could do some like sensory desensitization, like put it
spit
in
a
like
little
a
bit.
sensory, put it in a sensory bin and like touch it with your fingers.
I don't.
I think it's fine to be weirded out by
I
other
don't
people's
want to.
saliva.
Exactly. I think of it like if I smeared shit on the lip of this, like he's not gonna drink that. That's how I envision it, or urine or whatever. Like that's.
I mean, people's oral biomes are
Yep. I
interesting.
protect mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
He puts his mouth
here's
on
what's
anything.
No, but here's what's weird about his. Have you ever been sitting somewhere and like you accidentally like start to take a sip of someone else's drink, or it like they get switched
yeah.
up and
And
you're
it's-
like,
Ugh.
you're like, oh no, that's not mine. And then you just like, let's say that it was a whatever the drink is, but you're like, oh, this is the wrong one, and then you just switch like it's no big deal, right? But he would be like, nope, dumping the whole thing out, never touching it again. I don't need to.
I just protect. I'm like hands on. I'm eyeballing it. I think it started as a kid too, like water bottles after soccer. I could be dying of thirst if I see a kid grab my water bottle and like put it in his mouth. I just wait till I get home.
Do you share it with your own kids or your
So
wife?
so my wife, yes. My kids is a little gross to me.
Yeah.
But like sometimes I'll eat like a banana after soy or something because he eats like 2 bites. And but in my head I'm like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? I'd rather
Yeah.
like cut that piece off and
Yeah. That's how some kids feel about like any food.
yeah.
That
So
anxiety around food can be crazy, but I mean, I think other people's saliva is
just
rational.
disgusting.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Now you have a professional.
to be clear, I'm not like, here, have a sip of this before I have mine, just like to get a little extra.
But here's the problem that it turns into that I think that they do, and it makes it worse for me. Is like if I have to leave the room, I got to bring my drink with me. Because here's what I think. They're tonguing it down, waiting for me to come back.
Which
and
is
take a
sometimes
sip.
true.
And it probably has happened.
I like the game of like sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, and then he just never knows and he can't risk
Yeah, like
it.
or if he brings me a drink that's already opened or something, then I have to start thinking like, do I need to go dump this into another cup and kind of make sure it's clean?
Part of me wonders if something. Well, you said it started as a kid, but part of me wonders if if something happened during
Yeah.
pledging, like some kind of.
Yeah, no, pledge. No, I mean there was some weird stuff there. You just got to battle through that. But no, like I don't know. I can't think of anything as a child just being grossed out by liquid
Yeah.
stuff like blood. I don't like blood. I don't like any of that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's normal.
Yeah, good.
Oh,
He loved.
I
like,
hated that
he
you
could
said that.
Got a deer. I couldn't do any of that stuff. Like that's just it's too feminine for me.
Tom, not only does Tom not like gutting a deer, he doesn't like bugs or being outside.
I hate bugs. I'm the guy that likes to like just eat inside just to make sure there's no bugs. You know what I mean?
Well, you would get along well with my husband then, because he does hunt.
Does he?
And I don't think he does his own processing, but
Yeah,
I mean,
which I don't either, but I
yeah.
could. I mean, I could.
yeah, he processes his own like birds. Like if he gets like ducks.
Oh, he goes
or-
duck hunting too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
duck. It's almost turkey season.
Does Bruce golf?
He used to. Yeah, he used to actually be a member over here at they had a college discount at
Wildwood?
no. Northwood, the Spur at Northwood.
Oh, the Spur.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had
Yeah.
like a college discount there. He
Nice.
used to go
Oh,
all the
that's
time
cool.
in law school.
I want to hit on a little bit of speech before we start rapping. What words should like parents or people work with their kids on and or avoid? Like I know that like baby talk's not, you shouldn't do that, right?
So there's different philosophies about baby talk, but the biggest thing is repetition. Repeating it, like when you feel like you've said it too many times, say it like 10 more times than that. I like to talk about core words a lot with families, especially if the child is at risk for any kind of language delay. So in, out, up, down, please, stop, go, because those words, more, all done, things like that can be used across a variety of contexts. So it can be play, it can be like requesting something, it can be about food, it can be like to tell someone to, stop touching me. Things like that can be used over a variety of contexts. Yeah. So nouns have their place, like learning, book, ball, baby, all of those things have a place, and but you get the most kind of bang for your buck teaching core words first and how to use language.
Do you like does sign language help the baby or?
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good research out there that using sign language to model can be really helpful.
You'd almost think they'd avoid words though if they know the sign.
Yeah, so for both like sign language and AAC devices, like devices that for a child with a delay, that you press it and it says the word, speech generating devices. Both of those have really good positive research that you'd think that they would hinder, but they only help with verbal language.
Nice.
I'm big into reading with kids too. Like if you just have 3 or 4 or 5 books that you read every night, they hear the word, they see the word, and the most common words they hear the most, and then the least common words they hear the least amount. And then at some point they want to take over and start reading too, or they memorize it and then they can say it themselves. Yeah. But I found that R's are a hard letter.
Yeah.
And I think some kids don't even get it till 8, right? My daughter was not saying her R's properly at 4 or 5, and I was worried about it. But then she kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
But R's are hard. What other letters are hard?
L's. Yeah, because they're
Remen.
Yeah. You. Have you heard that about how Lululemon got named?
No.
Oh boy.
So the founder's in Vancouver, where there's just tons of Asians. Like, I don't know what percentage, but massive percentage. And they can't say their L's very well. So he was making up a name for his business, and I think he knew one, or maybe he had a buddy who couldn't say their L's. So he named it Lululemon just to have several L's in it, because then when his friends would say it, they would say Yemen.
Unbelievable, right?
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
I think he got ousted from his company too.
Oh goodness.
for racism.
No, it was for saying that. I think he said that some women were saying that like that Lululemon doesn't make sizes large enough, and he said Lululemon's not for everyone, and then he got ousted from the company.
Yikes.
So I think he was a character.
Yeah.
But this is all hearsay. I don't know this for sure.
And then music. Does music play a role for speech development?
Yeah.
What kind of tunes are you thinking?
I know it's annoying, but kid music. Like lots of, like
High School Musical?
No, like
Frozen on repeat.
Oh my gosh, that's the
Little
season
Mermaid.
of life we're in right now. Is Frozen on repeat.
Oh, I've been there
all day, every day. But no, like The Wheels on the Bus.
Classic.
I love The Wheels on the Bus. Old MacDonald.
Bingo.
They all have
BINGO.
You can do like selective pauses, so like the wheels on the bus go, and then you like raise your eyebrows, you lean in, get them to fill in. So a lot of like kind of closed set things like that in kids' songs. They're also just I don't know, really like the kid likes to listen and they'll learn, and the repetition's really helpful.
You almost made me say go round and round.
Yeah,
She was trying to get me.
She raised the eyebrows.
She did.
It's the eyebrows.
I knew what she wanted.
Yep. And so it works for kids too, or at least before they are able to verbalize, they'll like look at you back and they'll like, oh, I know you want me to do something, and I don't have the words for it yet, but like I'm giving you that verbal confirmation that I know what you're saying.
Are there any tricks? Like say a kid is struggling with the letter R. What do you do? Just keep saying like like what?
Yeah. So, for orofacial myofunctional therapy, there's a lot we can do with tongue retraction and things like that. And you would also work on some of that in like traditional therapy too, but usually you're having to do like some placement things. So like teaching the tongue to curl or to bunch back, because there's 2 different ways to make the R. Well, there's 27 different ways to make the R, but there's 2 different ways to teach it.
Oh.
So you teach like bunching the tongue or retracting it based on what the kid can do oral skills wise and how close you can get. And then you start on the sound level and then progress to like, different vowel progressions until you can get to a whole word.
It's pretty interesting. I've never thought of like tongue exercises. Like, and are there things like if I were to YouTube tongue exercises, it's not going to be XXX?
Yeah. So no. Yeah, there are things you can research, but so the thought process is just teaching the tongue to retract back or just doing these exercises is not going to lead to the R sound. You still have to teach the how to do it, the manner.
Right.
But if you can't do it at all and you can't get there, you have to teach that first. And I've had kids come to me with years and years and years of speech therapy under their belt, and then we combine the speech with the orofacial myofunctional therapy, and we get really good results quickly because we're actually teaching how to do it, especially with like tongue elevation or like posterior suction of the tongue and things like that. But yeah, myo kind of can really play into that.
And I think you mentioned it, but just so, what is your favorite case to work with? Like, who's your ideal client?
I really, really love when families come to see me, whether I've worked with them before when their baby was little or not. I love starting solids consultations. So, like, let's say a first-time mom, there's 1,000 different things on the internet, and there's online courses you can take, but there's something about going in, a therapist assessing your baby's mouth, putting them in a chair and showing them how to do different things, going through a game plan of this is what we feel comfortable with, starting, a puree first versus, like whole foods, finger length foods, things like that. And then also going through and like coming up with a game plan, coming up with, I always go through like infant choking, things like that with families too. And I love, it's like I've got it down to about an hour of like a transition to solids consultation.
Sweet.
My last question is about jaw exercises.
Yeah.
If I want a more chiseled jaw, what do you think I should be doing?
Side to side, like.
No. So a lot of people do compensate a lot with their jaw like that. The myomunchi, for sure.
Number 1.
Yep. I'll send you the link to that.
Okay.
Do you do one side at a time for that, or does it both?
It's like it almost looks like a bite guard, but it's silicone.
Okay.
So you put the whole thing in and just sit and bite. And then you can also work on tongue suction.
Like putting the tongue, I've heard put the tongue at the top of your mouth and hold it there.
Yeah, so your tongue should be gently suctioned to the roof of your mouth all the time.
What?
When your mouth, yeah. It doesn't, so when you're just sitting there and your mouth is closed, your tongue, and you're not talking or anything like that, you should be breathing through your nose with your tongue gently suctioned to the roof of your mouth.
That's
feels
good.
Weird.
And if you don't do that, you probably have some kind of oral dysfunction.
We needed that. Everyone needed that.
Everybody work on that.
Yep.
And so, all right, so the myomunchi, tongue, lightly suctioned up at the top of your mouth.
With an interdental freeway space. So you want to make sure that your teeth are like not touching. They're just slightly apart because sometimes you'll do that suction and you'll end up clenching. And you don't want your jaw to be clenched when you're doing that too. Nasal breathing.
Should we be putting on like a rubber glove and doing anything like grabbing our tongue and trying to resist?
I would probably leave that to
professionals.
Well, yeah. I mean, y'all are professionals, but someone with some training, I probably wouldn't just.
Well, I didn't know. You know how like you do those isometric. You could do isometrics. I didn't know if
Yeah.
like I grabbed my tongue and then I tried to move it.
So,
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
Nice.
it can be a thing. And I think there are some chiropractors who adjust.
Tongue?
Well, obviously the
Not
tongue
tongue,
is
but
not hard,
yeah,
but
power.
like,
Yeah, we have a couple that do stuff like that. all the time.
Yeah.
And I've had someone tell me that their chiro did like manipulate the tongue.
Yeah. Wow.
How far out do you think a person's tongue should go? Like, should you be able to touch your nose?
So, I mean, that would be cool. You want to be able to get food if there's food around your lips. It's honestly, it's less about how far out and more about before I discharge a patient, I really want them to be able to touch and clear any food from their back molars. Because if
Get
not,
the tip of the tongue behind it.
yeah, your
I
tongue
don't know
should.
if I can do it on the bottom, but the top I can.
Yeah, you should be able to go all the way around, like do like a figure 8 all the way around your teeth.
Oh, that's tough.
Without you did a lot of jaw
Yeah.
movement, and that's really bad.
So the
on your jaw
lower
over
zone,
time.
I'm deficient in the lower tongue movement.
What if she fixes this and then you're fine with
Oh,
people
God, that'd
drinking
be
out of your
great.
straw
That'd be
afterwards?
wild. No, I don't. I don't
would
even
be
want.
a-
I don't
I don't
want.
think that
That'd be
would.
huge.
Yeah,
No.
but I have had kids who will then like go and eat an apple once we finally figured out, because they'd have like a chunk of food and
Yeah.
they don't want to eat something because they know that they don't have the oral skills to eat it.
Yep.
Or steak. I see that all the time where kids are just like, I'm not gonna do that because I know I can't do that.
Yes.
You know
But
what
they
I
don't have
just
the words
thought
for
of?
that.
I just thought of something else. Piercings, tongue piercings, lip piercing. Like, what's the deal with those? It's got to be a problem. Or like people are cutting the frenulum to make their tongue more mobile.
Oh,
Have you seen that?
no.
That's
I've
a
not
new
seen
thing.
that. That's interesting.
Yes.
Wait,
Yeah.
didn't Kiss do that? So his tongue
Yes.
goes way out?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
It's like it like increases mobility, but I don't know if that's a good thing, bad thing. I don't know. But I would like piercing of the tongue, depending on the position. I feel like that would restrict things.
yeah. Well, and
Cutting the tongue. Have you seen that?
yeah, like you make yourself have like a snake tongue.
Yes.
Yes.
So the problem with like cutting, super far back, more than just like a tie release, but like cutting too far back, there's a lot of really important vessels,
Yep.
your salivary gland, all of that back there. But also, the risk of like sleep apnea might go up because your tongue could fall back into your soft palate,
Yep.
and can cause apnea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know about the snake tongue. I mean, I've even seen people who like will train each side. There's
I've
so many
seen
muscles
that.
in the tongue.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And you can like train each side.
I saw an Instagram on that. It was wild.
So like, hey now, brown cow. Hey now, brown cow. Have you heard that? That's how you get like your voice ready and your tongue moving.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different like.
Well, what's the one that you know?
Unique New York. From the
That
Anchorman.
was good. That's a good one.
What was it? There's one that's escaped me that was a movie, I can't remember, but yeah, there's a lot of different like
That-
tongue twisters.
Yep.
Sally sold seashells by the seashore. That one.
That's good. Yep.
Lots of.
All right.
All right.
How
well,
do people find? Let's
yeah.
get
Tell us about your business.
Yeah, so it's Milk and Milestones, pediatric feeding services. I'm in Lexington, in town limits. I'm on Instagram, Milk and Milestones LLC.
What is town limits? I've heard you say that twice now. Is that a different?
Yeah.
Is that different than Lexington?
Well, Lexington is huge. I think it's like
Oh,
the
you're,
largest
like, in the,
county. I'm like in the town of
limits.
Lexington. Yeah.
In the limits.
Yeah. In the heart of Lexington, not out
Yep.
in Peelian or anything like
Yeah,
that.
that's a good point then. And then you said, is there a website?
Yeah, milkandmilestonesllc.com.
milkandmilestonesllc.com.
And you can self-book for pediatric or
Follow you on
infant
Instagram.
feeding. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
Awesome.
This
Thank
was
you guys
fun.
so much.
We're here for the health of it.
For the health of it.